Flashes flashed across the red carpet. Reporters called out their names in a rush. Sam. Caitriona, look over here. Sam Heughan adjusted his suit collar, smiling slightly. Caitriona Balfe walked beside him, in a long emerald gown, looking haughty but with a slightly hesitant look in her eyes. They were used to appearing together, but there was something a little different today, neither of them would admit it. As the MC approached, holding the microphone toward them, Sam leaned in slightly, politely. It's a pleasure to be here tonight, and it's even more special to be with Caitriona. Caitriona smiled, but perhaps the smile faded too quickly, replaced by a nod. Yes, it's great. The silence lasted longer than it should have. The audience from afar did not notice, but those standing nearby could clearly feel the awkwardness creeping into the air. They stood next to each other, but neither of them took the initiative to lightly touch the other's hand as usual. The reporter continued to ask, "Can you two share a little about your upcoming project?" Sam turned to Caitriona, his eyes questioning, as if he wanted to give way. She quickly bent down to adjust her skirt, pretending to be busy. Finally, he smiled faintly, answering instead. A few seconds later, Caitriona added a few more sentences, her voice low and even, but avoiding looking directly at Sam. When the interview ended, the two entered the hall. On the big screen, the image of them standing next to each other looked perfect, in harmony, like an inseparable pair of companions. But in reality, the distance of only a few centimeters between them was like an invisible wall. Sam sighed softly, loud enough for only himself to hear. Caitriona glanced at him, her eyes flashing before she quickly left, leaving behind a silence that even the music in the hall could not hide. The light of hundreds of flashbulbs flashed like a sparkling shower of stars. The atmosphere on the red carpet was usually bustling, but for Sam Heughan and Caitriona Balfe, everything seemed to slow down, lingering in an awkward silence. They had spent years working together, accompanying each other in countless events, but tonight was different. Both had just finished a long-term project, overlapping schedules, and personal fatigue that widened the distance between them. And when standing next to each other in front of dozens of cameras, that invisible distance became obvious. "Sam, Caitriona, look over here," the shouts from the reporters echoed. Sam turned, smiled, his hand slightly raised as if to wrap around Caitriona's waist, but then stopped midway. He just put his hands in his pockets, keeping the smile on his lips from missing a beat. Caitriona tilted her head slightly, her smile blooming gently but fleeting like lightning. As the host approached, the microphone was raised in front of them, and Sam was the first to speak. "Tonight has been truly special. We've had a wonderful journey, and I'm honored to be standing here with Caitriona." Caitriona nodded slightly, her voice low and steady. "Yes, a memorable journey, and there's still much more to come." A thin silence stretched out, like a string stretched between them. No one else noticed, but both of them felt it clearly. After the interview, they walked into the hall together. The music was pounding, the chatter was lively, but there was a quiet distance between them. Caitriona took a glass of wine, her eyes straying towards the stage. Sam stood next to her, silent for a few seconds before speaking. "We haven't really talked in a long time, have we?" Caitriona turned around, slightly surprised. She smiled slightly, a smile that was both teasing and defensive. "You still know how to start a conversation." Sam smiled, this time more genuine than the smile for the camera. "I'm not good at keeping quiet, especially when this distance makes me uncomfortable." Caitriona took a sip of wine, her blue eyes seemed to soften. In the warm yellow light of the chandelier, she looked both proud and fragile. "Maybe we're both tired. But you're right, this silence isn't comfortable." They looked at each other, a brief but deep look, enough to break the thin layer of ice that surrounded them. Sam gently held out his hand. "Let's go for a walk? It's too noisy here." Caitriona hesitated for a moment, but then placed her soft hand in his. They left the hall, crossing the wide corridor that led to the small garden behind the hotel. The air outside was cool, the night breeze gently blowing, carrying the scent of flowers. The music still echoed in the distance, but now they were alone in the quiet. Sam let out a long breath, as if he had held it in for too long. I miss the times when things were simpler. When it was just us, long takes, endless conversations. There were no layers. Caitriona bowed her head slightly, her fingers lightly touching her bracelet. I miss it too, but sometimes, success makes things complicated. Another silence, but this time it wasn't forced. It felt like a safe space, for both of them to listen to themselves. Sam took a step forward, his voice low. I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose you. Caitriona looked up, her eyes wide, sparkling in the garden lights. For a moment, all the invisible barriers seemed to melt away. You, her voice trembled slightly, I don't want to either. Sam smiled, no longer forced, no longer smiling for the camera. He reached out, gently brushing away the loose hair on her forehead. The gesture was simple, but it made the whole space warm. The distance between them gradually narrowed. The rustling of leaves, the distant music, everything seemed to retreat, giving way to the moment when two hearts found their familiar beat. Caitriona tilted her head slightly, her smile this time complete and soft. Maybe silence is also necessary, for us to realize what we miss the most. Sam replied with a gentle gaze. And for us to find each other again. In that moment, in the middle of the small garden, the yellow light fell on their hair, the two slowly embraced each other. No need for explanation, no need to hide, only the genuine connection that had been forgotten. The awkwardness had disappeared, leaving only warmth, tenderness and a silent promise that they would not let any invisible distance separate them anymore. When they returned to the hall, no one seemed to notice that they had left. The crowd was still noisy, the laughter still echoed everywhere, but for Sam and Caitriona, everything was different. They walked side by side, no longer awkward, instead, there was a comfortable silence, like two old friends who had just found a familiar rhythm. The party lasted until late at night. As the stage lights gradually dimmed, Sam leaned gently towards Caitriona, whispering, Do you want to go home early? I think we've had enough of the flashbulbs tonight. Caitriona laughed, her laughter clearer than any melody in the hall. I think so too. Let's go. The private car took them away from the hotel, gliding through the brightly lit streets. The car was quiet, only the smooth sound of the engine and the yellow light from the street lamps shining through the windows. Caitriona took off her heels, breathing a sigh of relief. Finally free. Sam leaned in, his eyes sparkling in the darkness. I like seeing you on the red carpet, but I like it better like this. You don't have to force a smile for the camera, you don't have to act for anyone. Caitriona looked up, her gaze meeting his. Without explanation, they both understood the sincerity present. You know, she said softly, what I miss most, is the times when we just sat in silence, but it was enough. Sam smiled, his hand reaching out, taking hers. The grip wasn't too tight, not too light, just enough to transmit warmth. So tonight, let's keep it simple. No fuss, no pretense. Just us. The car stopped in front of Caitriona's hotel. Sam didn't let go right away, on the contrary, he squeezed gently, as if afraid to lose this moment. Caitriona looked down, then up, her smile this time full and peaceful. Thank you, Sam, for not letting the silence become distance. He leaned down, brushing his lips lightly against the back of her hand. A classic, gentle gesture, but one that held more than any promise.